Hi, welcome to my tutorial on how I crochet these ear warmers. There are a lot of tutorials out there and patterns using different variations of yarn, but this is one that I have just created to fit my own circumference of my head and using yarns that I want to use. But obviously happy to share with yourselves, and hopefully by the end of it you'll know exactly how to make a crochet headband if you don't already. So quite a few of these that are out there are crocheted in chunky yarn. These three here are using a worsted yarn, Malabrigo Rios I've used for these. This one here, you'll see it has a different texture. This is using Winnie's yarn, and it is a DK pink yarn with a fluorescent pink, which you'll see it's quite bright, and that has come up with the same gauge that the worsted yarn does. So you can experiment with yarns. If you only have double knit yarn, just double it up and then you'll get a similar gauge to the worsted. So let's begin. For the purpose of this, for my measurement, I'm using a 5mm crochet hook. I use the tulip crochet hooks a lot, absolutely love them, or the beige handled clover. They're just personal preference, so pick up whatever hook you have, but for this purpose I'm using a 5mm. You'll also need, for this, you'll need some needles or a needle so that you can sew in your ends. There isn't a lot of ends with this, which makes it even better as a project. Pair of scissors, and obviously your yarn. So as we're now in October, we're coming up to autumn, or we're in autumn, but we're coming up to Halloween season. So I thought I'd pick a colour. So I have a bit of a, I don't like the balls when they get messy. So all we're going to do to start with, so what you need to do, this is based on my head circumference, which I would say is a pretty average sized head, if there is such a thing. And for these ones, I chain 82. I've experimented between 80 and 84. I find that the 82 works perfectly for me. So what you need to do initially is measure the person who's going to be wearing it, measure their head. So you've got an idea, or what you can do, which I find much easier, is start chaining. So if you went up to, if you're looking at an adult size head, maybe chain up to 80, and then what you'll do with the chains is actually wrap this whole thing around the head to see if it joins. You don't need it so that the yarn overlaps where it joins, and if there is a little gap in between, that's fine, because these are designed to stretch. You can see they've got quite a bit of give in them. You don't want them that they're falling down, but you also don't want it that they're actually restricting the person's head. So I would recommend, how I do it is I chain X amount of chains and then just offer it up to the person's head for the measurement. Really is as basic as that. So for myself, we're going to chain 82 stitches. So let's do that, see if I can lose count. So if any of you are new crocheters, with the chain, they're pretty easy to decipher where each chain is. And if you lose count, you can go in and count each, where you've got the V as it were, is one stitch. Obviously don't count this one on the hook. So you'll count down from here. So I've got 10 on here at the moment. If, like me, because it happens a lot, you actually forget how many you've done, you could put stitch markers every 10 as a way of not losing count. But let's see if I can actually do this. Okay, so I've got 20. So what I'll probably do is speed this up, because it's probably quite boring watching me chain, so you can get to the good part. Okay, so we now have 82 stitches on the hook. What you can do is wrap that round the person's head. Now it doesn't look that big, but it has a lot of give in it. And when you put it round the person's head, you want to be doing it from the bottom of the hairline across their ears and up to the top. Okay, so I'm just going to now move these out of the way so we've got a little bit of space. Good thing about crochet, if it comes off your hook, you can pick it up so easy, unlike knitting where it's not great if you lose your stitches. Okay, so I've done 82. Now what you're going to do for the first start, the stitch that is used for this all the way through are HDC, half double crochets. So I'm using UK terminology here. So for this, if you don't know, you're going to wrap the yarn round and then you're going to count down and go into the third stitch. So you've got 1, 2 and 3. And we're going to go into that third stitch and then pull the yarn through. So you've got 3 loops on your hook, yarn over, and then you're going to pull through all 3. That is a half double crochet. So I'm hoping those of you using this will know what this stitch is. It's just in case you're not quite sure. Go into the next chain, yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through 3. Now what you're going to do is you're going to crochet half double crochets all the way through the chains. So what it will mean is you will be crocheting 80 half double crochets, because this end one here, you've actually used 2 of the chains to form the first half double crochet. So we are going to go all the way along through the chains and I'll meet you at the other end. We have got to the last chain here. So we're going to do our last half double crochet. And when you're at the end, you want to chain 1 and turn the work. This gives the edge a nice tidy edge. Now what you don't do, that chain there, you do not go into that stitch. You don't count that as a stitch. So what we're going to do is next to that is the first half double crochet from the bottom row. An easier way of doing it is where you do your standard crochet and you go through both here. You're not going to do that. For the purpose of this design, you're going to go into back loop only. So get your work, turn it towards you if you're not sure. Obviously there's going to be a lot of you that know how to do this, but these are people that don't do this or haven't done this before. You're going to go into the back loop. So before I take the yarn in, I'm going to show you that's both loops. If you're just doing a standard crochet stitch, if you want to do back loop only, which is BLO when it's abbreviated, you're going to go into that back loop. So I'll show you. Yarn over, turn the work towards you, and we're going to ignore that first chain and go into back loop only. Show you again into that part. We'll go into back loop, yarn over, back loop, pull through, so what this actually does, see on here, this creates, where I've gone into the back, it creates this really nice ribbed effect. It gives you good texture on the headband rather than just doing flat crochet stitches. This does give a bit of texture to the actual design. So yarn over, back loop, pull through all 3. So I'm going to go all the way along here doing half double crochets in back loop only. That is all you need for this pattern. So I'll meet you at the end of this row. So now we're almost at the end of the row. So I've got 2 more to do. So I'm going to go into the back loop here. I've not gone right to the end because I want to show you this bit. So you'll see here is the very last stitch. If it's not that clear where to go in, turn your work. You'll see the V there and go into the back loop there. That's how you'll know you've done your end. If ever you're not sure, just stretch the work a little to see if there's a stitch there. And then because we're at the end, we're going to chain 1 and turn the work. So yarn over, we're going to ignore that chain and go into the stitch, back loop only. And then in the next back loop, and as you did on the row below, you're going to half double crochet all the way along. Now, one thing to mention is this yarn here, as you can see, isn't 100 grams. I have weighed how much I use in these and it's round about 38 grams. So from 100 grams, I'm sure you can do the maths, you can easily get 2 of these out of it based on an 82 chain. But even if you have to make one slightly bigger, you will still have enough yarn, because 50 grams would make a really large head warmer. But yeah, this was when I weighed it just over 38. I think it was 39 grams, so I know it's perfectly enough. So we're going to go all the way along, half double crochet, back loop only. So I'm going to crochet all the way along to the end, do one more row with you, and then I'll come back when I've done the rows so that I can show you how it's assembled. So we're almost at the end of this row, just finishing, going to the back loop on the end. So when we've got our end, we're going to just chain 1 and then turn the work. And then ignoring the first chain, you're going to go into the first half double crochet from the bottom row even, and then do your half double crochets. And this is all you do for every row. So what you will end up with is these ridges here. This is where you've gone into the back loop. It creates this ridged effect. Now on this one, where I was playing around with whips, I've got, you'll count, if you count the ridges, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I did a 6 ridge on there, but I personally prefer to do this 7. It just gives it a little bit more width. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That's basically how you'll know when you've got to the right width. You don't have to count all the individual rows, use the ridges as your counters. So I'm going to carry on doing each row, and then I shall meet you at the end of that so that I can show you how it is put together. So we're now at the end of the rows, and I have just tied the yarn off here. Let's just get this out of the way so you can see out of the amount I've still got a little bit left. So as you would, tie a knot in the end there and then leave enough here. You can see it's quite a long tail so that we can actually join it together. Okay, so I'm going to put this on this side, and the way that we join this is a simple technique. You've got your ends here, is pinch them together. See? And then you're going to zigzag it into each other, fold it into each other. So I'm going to show you again. So fold each end in half, like so, and bring them round together. So you'll see there's the opening and where you folded it in half, and then open one side and you're going to slide them into each other. So this is how you create the twist. So I'm just going to put this into a needle. I just use a standard, I mean you can use a smaller needle, but I use one with a fairly big eyelet on it. And then let me show you again. Pinch the ends together and open, and then you'll fold them into each other. So you can see that's one side, and then see the other ones here. You're going to put that there. So what you want to do is make sure that the ends all meet. You see? And then you need to make sure that you sew all the way through all 4 pieces. So I'm just going to put this one, actually let's thread that back through there so we can start here so it's easy for you to see. So pinch them together so it's nice and tidy. And then you're just going to go through near to the end, but make sure that you are picking up each of the layers. So there's 4 sections to this. Through there and through there. And then pull that. And then you are going to go back and forth through this, but making sure that you're picking each part up. You want the yarn to go through all 4 pieces, otherwise when you turn it back on itself you're going to end up with gaps, and you don't want that. You want it to be nice and secure. So keep going through that, all 4 pieces. You'll see if you go across there you're going to miss it, so make sure there's number 2, number 3 and number 4. Pull them through, back through. You're going to do this all the way to the end because you want to make sure it's all secure. And that there's no gaps. And then what I normally do is I just go back again if I've got any spare yarn. Just keep going back and forth. Normally back and forth just one way then back the other way is more than enough. It's probably a little bit over the top for what you need, but for me it just gives me peace of mind that it's nice and secure, particularly if you're looking at selling these. Then you want to make sure that you're not going to get anyone coming back saying, well, it's, you know, it's come apart, there's holes in it. Nice and secure. There we go. What I do then is just weave across just as an extra bit. And then just pull it tight and then snip. So what you've got here as well, you've just got the end. You might want to sew that in before, or you can just give it a quick sew in afterwards. Okay, so I'm just going to add this one. So all you have to do, you've just got 2 ends. That's all there is with this. Unless you decided to do, which I haven't done, but you might want to do a stripy head warmer. And if you do, then obviously you possibly will have more than a couple of ends. Some people enjoy sewing ends in, I do not. So I'm just gonna weave that in. and then snip. So now here's the fun bit. So at the moment it doesn't look very exciting. So you want to create this twist. So the way you do it, so there's my sewed ends. You're going to flip it back the other way, inside out as it were. And then that's how you create it. So I'll show you again. That's how it looks when you've sewn it. And just flip it back on itself. And that's how you create the twist effect. You'll see they're all like that. It is, I can honestly say, the easiest head warmer that I've ever made. It's just, I just wanted a really basic, simple design. You can make lots of these for gifts, or if you wanted to sell. Obviously, there's loads of people who have made similar patterns. If you want to follow this tutorial and then make a load and sell them, fill your boots. I think it's great. The more that we share and help each other, the better. So I've got no issue. The only thing I ask, if anyone makes any of these, would you tag me in if you put them on Instagram, because I really do enjoy seeing what people make. As I said at the start of this tutorial, you can make it with different thickness yarns. This is double knit with slub. This is my colourways, and it creates a more like a more textured, slightly thicker headband. But there are endless options. But yeah, that's how you make the easy crochet headband. So I hope you found this tutorial helpful. If you have any questions, you can always message me at Instagram on Crochetknitlovebyjo, or if you have any questions, you can email me crochetknitlovebyjo@outlook.com. But yeah, very easy, and I look forward to seeing what you make.